can be found everywhere. Under a huge boulder, between the crevices of rocks, near the vents of underwater volcanoes, or even in stagnant water in potholes. The diversity of life is truly amazing. Living things adjust in any kind of environment. Although living things are diverse, scientists were able to observe relationships among them. In the study of their physical and molecular structures, scientists were able to discover some bases in grouping them. Thus, the branch of biology called taxonomy evolved. Taxonomy is a branch of science that deals with the systematic classification of living things. Taxonomists are able to describe, classify, and identify living things. Good day everyone, I am Ma'am Jenny, your science teacher, and today we will be discussing about the diversity of living things. The theme of this video lesson is the concept of biological diversity, referring to the phenomenon that the Earth is populated by an incredibly large number, variety, and variability of living things. On the next video lessons, you will be treated to a parade of life from the smallest unicellular bacterium to the majestic beauty of a lawan tree. From the colorful algae of the sea to the comparably attractive hues of flowering plants. From the unassuming and quiet demeanor of a tarsier to the infectious and intrusive nature of some fungi. You will learn that every organism has an interesting story. Every life form has a place under the sun because, even unknown to us, every living thing is important to something or to someone. It is a humbling thought to know that we are but a small part of the entire universe and of the mystery of God's creation. We are part of that web of life, no less, no more important than another. We will find out answers to some intriguing questions. Why are there so many different species? How can we classify them? Why do living things share common characters? Why do some organisms more similar or more different than others? Why do organisms live in particular habitats? How do these organisms benefit or harm us? To answer these questions, the topic about biological diversity is divided into 6 video lessons. Number 1 is the first video has something to do with the introduction to biodiversity. The second video has something to do with the diversity of archaebacteria and eubacteria. The third video is all about the diversity of protists. The fourth video is about the kingdom of fungi. The fifth video will discuss about the diversity of plants. And finally, for the sixth video, we will talk about the diversity among kingdom of animals. Let us have a review of what we have learned last time. True or false? A genotype is an individual's observable traits, such as height, eye color, and blood type. If your answer is false, then you are correct because it is not genotype but the phenotype is the individual's observable traits or the physical manifestation of traits. Number 2, homozygous is a genetic condition where an individual inherits the same alleles for a particular gene from both parents. The answer is true. The third one, a dihybrid cross allows us to look at the pattern of inheritance of two different traits at the same time. The answer is true. Next, the law of segregation states that one of the pairs of inherited traits will be dominant and the others recessive unless both the factors are recessive. If your answer is false, then you are correct. It is because it is the law of dominance and not the law of segregation. Next, a recessive gene is a gene whose effects are masked in the presence of a dominant gene. For this statement, the answer is true. On this video lesson, we will explain the concept of a species and we will classify organisms using the hierarchical taxonomic system. Biodiversity is a term used to describe the enormous variety of life on Earth. It can be used more specifically to refer to all the species in one region or ecosystem. Biodiversity is a measure of variation at the genetic, species, and ecosystem level. In biology, a species is the basic unit of classification and a taxonomic rank of an organism, as well as a unit of biodiversity. The designation of species originates in taxonomy, where the species is the fundamental unit of classification recognized by the International Commission of Zoological Nomenclature. Taxonomy is the science of naming, describing, and classifying organisms and includes all plants, animals, and microorganisms of the world. How are living things classified? Do you know how organisms were grouped and named in ancient times? The famous Greek philosopher Aristotle, who is the father of biology, first classified organisms as either plants or animals some 2,000 years ago. He developed a very crude system of classification. If we are going to follow Aristotle's system, plants were then grouped as herbs, those with soft stems, shrubs with stems harder than those of herbs, or trees taller than shrubs but with the same wooded type of trunk. Aristotle classified animals as the aerial animals or air dwellers, the terrestrial animals or the land dwellers, and the aquatic animals or the water dwellers. Many plants and animals did not fit into Aristotle's system of grouping. Aristotle's scheme of classification was not always applicable and confused many people. For example, in the case of a frog can live both in water and in land. So how are we going to classify a frog? Is it a land dweller or a water dweller? Another example is a bird. A bird does not stay on air for 24 hours. Sometimes it stays on land. Later, scientists devised other classification systems which also proved unworkable. These early systems gave common names to organisms based on their similarities in appearance and attributes. common name is a name that is based on the normal language of everyday life, also known as vernacular name, English name, colloquial name, trivial epithet, country name, or popular name. Common names are used locally and may vary by region or country. In the Philippines alone, a species may take on different names depending on provincial location and dialect used. For example, cat in Tagalog, we call it pusa. In Waray, they call it misay. In Bisaya, it is called iring. Bicol, it is called ikos. They may also change from one country to another and from one language to the next. Imagine people from different countries when they talked about a particular species or of organism, and that is the cat. So how will they understand each other? The common names given to organisms confuse many people and prove to be misleading. For example, the jellyfish and starfish are two marine organisms, but neither of them is a true fish. They are structurally different, and they are not even closely related to one another. The same is true with other organisms. Next, we have the Linnaean system of classification. To avoid confusion and identification, scientists all over the world agree to refer to organisms by their scientific names. The scientific name of a species is composed of two Latin words. The first word is the name of the genus, plural is genera, and the second word is the specific epithet. Thus, cat is known in science communities worldwide as Felis catus. Taxonomy began with the work of Carolus Linnaeus, a Swedish naturalist during the 18th century. Linnaeus developed a system of grouping organisms into hierarchical categories. There are 7 major levels of classification. We have the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. It is arranged from the highest to the lowest. So for you to remember it easily, the proper sequence, you have to remember this mnemonics. Keep personal computer on for great surfing. That stands for kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Kingdom is the highest level. Phylum is a subdivision of a kingdom. Class, each phylum is divided into classes. Each class is divided into orders. Each order is divided into families. Each family is divided into genera. While the species is the lowest level, which represents a single type of organism. Identification and classification of the Earth's diverse species used to be based largely on observed structural characteristics. Today, this system includes 8 taxa: domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. So these are the key characteristics of kingdoms and domains. For any organism identified, a scientific name is given. In this way, every scientist and other people from different places would use the same name for the same organism. A scientific name consists of 2 parts: the genus, which is always capitalized, and the species epithet. Take note that scientific names are written in italics. An example of a scientific name is Homo sapiens, to refer to modern human beings. It is written in italics and in which the initial letter of the genus name is capitalized. Scientific names can also be written without italics, but they should be underlined separately. The Philippines is one of the 17 mega biodiverse countries, containing 2/3 of the Earth's biodiversity and 70% of world's plants and animal species due to its geographical isolation, diverse habitats, and high rates of endemism. Now look at the scientific names below and determine what is wrong with the way the names are written. So you have Capsicum sativum, Pterocarpus indicus, Cannabis sativa, Moringa oleifera, Canis familiaris, and Pyrus malus. Okay, you may pause this video so that you can rewrite the scientific names correctly. Alright, let us compare our answers. If you have written the scientific names in italics, this must be your answer. Or, if you have written it not in italics, you have to underline it separately. Make sure that the first letter of the genus name is capitalized while the rest is not capitalized. At this point, let us check your understanding. Number 1. The science of describing, classifying, and naming living things is called A. Geology, B. Biology, C. Taxonomy, D. Chemistry. Number 2. The scientific name for an organism is made from the A. Class and family name, B. Genus and species name, C. Domain and kingdom, D. Kingdom and phylum. Number 3. The 8 levels of classification, broadest to most specific. A. Domain, genus, family, order, class, phylum, kingdom, species. B. Domain, species, kingdom, genus, phylum, family, class, order. C. Order, kingdom, species, domain, phylum, family, class, genus. And letter D. Domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Alright. Number 4. Biodiversity refers to A. The variety of species on Earth, B. Non-renewable resources, C. Extinct species, D. The rate of species decline. And number 5, which of the following scientific names is correctly written? A. We have the Philippine eagle. B. We have the Nara. C. We have the Carabao. And letter D. We have the Tarsier. Alright, let us have our answers. Number 1. Letter C. Number 2. B. Number 3. D. Number 4. A. And number 5. Letter B. Thank you for watching this video lesson. Don't forget to watch the next part of this video with domain archaea, kingdom or K bacteria, domain bacteria or kingdom Eubacteria.